agrochemical companies, pesticide companies basically, that are now in the business of making our food, and they're saying that the world needs them because there's going to be 9 billion people in the world, and that we're going to need them to feed the world. What do you think about that?
Well, first off, we're already producing enough food on the planet to feed more than 10 billion people. So it's not a question of whether or not we're producing, how are we going to produce more? We're already producing enough. Multiple studies from industry, these are industry-based studies, show that 30 to 40% of all food that is grown on the planet ends up in the landfill, or dumped into the ocean, or sitting somewhere rotting in some storage area, grain storage area, because the people don't have the money to buy the food, or because of political instability.
Okay, so when you say we're producing enough food to feed 10 billion people, who's producing it?
Nearly 65% of all food, if not 70% of all food on the planet, is produced by small shareholders and small farmers across the globe. So for instance, in the United States, 3/4 of everything that we eat in the U.S. contains genetically engineered ingredients.
3/4.
3/4, and that's mostly because it's processed foods. And yes, there's like a bottle of GMO canola oil or vegetable oil that contains half soybean oil, half canola, both of which are genetically engineered, designed to be sprayed with these herbicides and pesticides. They're corrupting the political system at the highest levels of government. They are actually working with legislation and paying these politicians to push their agenda through. And what that's doing is it's snuffing out the voice of the people who do not believe in that method of farming, do not believe in feeding their families that food that has that energetic, food that is grown with pesticides, to name only one. Carbon, what it's doing to the climate, but that's why many people across the United States, around 90%, multiple studies have found that 90% of Americans want the food labeled, so they can be able to make these decisions for themselves as to what method of agriculture they want to support. And then that kind of lets truth speak for itself, if you believe in the free market. What's so great about organic? Well, organic does not use many of the same pesticides as conventional or genetically engineered farming does, many of which have been shown to either be probable carcinogens or suspect to be cancer-causing or endocrine disrupting or persistent in the environment. Not something that just goes away, like in the case of Roundup, which is used with 3/4 of the U.S. food supply. So why choose organic, or why organic methods of producing food?
Yes.
Not only does it use organic integrated pest management and other less harmful chemicals on the production of that on the farm, and for our water and for soil and things like that, that are not considered probable carcinogens as the genetically engineered crops are. A major one is that organic farming puts animal manures and things back into the soil and uses compost and uses earthworms and vermipost and different things that are actually biologically based. And so the chemical systems, as we know very clearly now, definitively, that agrochemical growing of food, it actually builds up salts in the soil which are toxic to the very biology that one needs to have healthy plant. And so if you don't have a healthy plant, what will you possibly need after you start growing that plant?
A pesticide.
These plants are open to more stress because they've had so many chemicals applied to the soil. It's residual, it adds up. And so productivity starts going down, so you have to use more chemicals, and then those plants are sick. And so you have to actually implement pesticides because there's too many whiteflies or aphids or squash bugs or something eating and down and destroying your crop. So the only way to do that is to lay on the pesticides. And so the big difference is that you're eating and choosing and supporting a farming method, whereas the other one you're choosing the other one that has consequences for the long term. It may be quicker to just sprinkle some, to send your big truck out there and lay down your pesticides, your herbicides, your NPK, your fertilizer, everything like that. But with organic, it takes a little bit more hands-on. You got to turn your compost, you got to build organic matter in your soil. That is critical to the health of these plants. And by doing that, you are actually, in an organic system, sequestering carbon at a higher rate than you are with the other methods of agriculture, which are fossil fuel intensive. Everything from the pesticide to the natural gas that's needed for the fertilizers, etc., are all based on fossil fuel. And large scale tractors that my family back in Iowa uses, these are driven by GPS devices, and you're out there farming thousands of acres, one farmer. There's consequences in choosing that method of agriculture over something that is more ecologically based or biologically based, as in agroecology or organic farming.
How much can the soil take before it's just like, no way, I'm not growing anything else?
Again, the biologically based studies are coming out now on soil health, and the work of Dr. Elaine Ingham, who was a soil biologist for Oregon State University, has shown that the applications of glyphosate, which again is nearly 90% of all genetically engineered crops on the planet, are glyphosate tolerant, as in you can spray them and not have your crop die. This product glyphosate that we've been using for better than 20 years is actually destroying the biology of the soil.